Alright, so today we're making some sort of fermented drink. You can make any sort of fermented drink you want. I'm doing like kind of a ginger beer thing, so I'm using ginger root. So what you're going to need to do this, you're going to need whatever you want to ferment, basically. Fruits, that kind of stuff. For this example, I'm going to be using this ginger root right here. It's good to get organic ginger root. You can get it at the store. I think I got this at Publix for $4.99 a pound or something like that. It's just fresh ginger root. And then it's also good to have a lemon for some lemon juice. So you're going to want to have a squeezer as well, or the squeezer thing you get the juice in. I've also got some oranges here, and then sometimes I'll put in other stuff like you can get the little assorted fruit tubs or whatever that has a couple of different kinds of fruit in there. Those are handy because you can basically just toss, watermelon, blueberries, whatever in there. It gives you a little bit more interesting kind of thing. So that's kind of what I'm working with here right now. You're also going to want to have a giant thing like this that you can seal to let it ferment in, and yeast, alright, which an active yeast, which is what causes the fermentation, and some sort of organic cane sugar. You can also use honey, you can use both, and so that's kind of more or less what you need to get going. It's very, very simple. The whole thing is very simple to prepare. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take, in this case, ginger root. I've already started kind of getting the ginger root ground down. I'm using kind of the coarser side here so that the chunks are a little bit larger. You don't want to go too fine. But basically, it kind of is self-explanatory. You take the ginger root and you just grind it down. Now, like I say, I think I'm using less than a pound of ginger here. Ginger's really good for you. It's got a lot of medicinal properties. It's good for your digestion. They say it's good for energy. A lot of different things. So ginger's a really good thing to use. It's kind of up to you how much you want to use. You can use more, you can use less. I've made this a couple of times, and one of the times was a little less gingery. One of the other times it was quite a bit more gingery. So it just depends on how strong you want it. So you can grind this down. Just kind of keep going until you basically use up the whole thing. It's up to you. I don't like to waste anything, even the stuff that's not ground up, so or shredded rather. So I'll use the shredder and shred everything as much as I can, and then I'll just take everything that's laying down here and just toss it in the thing. Okay, so I have my ginger ground up or shredded now. I've cut one orange in half. I've cut one lemon in half. I've got some organic pure cane sugar here. I also have some Fleischmann's active dry yeast, which I got at Publix for like a few dollars, and it came with a bunch of packs. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the little juicer here. Well, first what I'll go ahead and do is I'll take the ginger and just go ahead and put it in here. So you can see I got about that much in there. Dump that all in there, and then I like to grab everything that came off of it, so I'm not wasting ginger. Okay, that's about how much is in there. Alright, so obviously that's a good bit of ginger, but whatever, it's good for you, I guess. I'm gonna take the lemon, just juice it down on there. Now, I'm kind of just winging it here. There are exact measurements for all this. I just kind of ballpark it and kind of tweak it as I go, adjust the recipe after every time I do it. You know, you can fine tune how much ginger you have in there to ginger, you know, fresh ginger, if you've never had it, has a real bite. So you're going to want to kind of play with that. Let's see, so you can go ahead and do a half a lemon, dump it in there so you've got fresh lemon juice. I'm going to go ahead and just do the whole lemon. I think the first time I did this recipe I used just half, but why not? We'll just go for it. And then you can, as I mentioned, you can adjust how much of the different kinds of fruit you put in there as well. I've used watermelon, blueberries, strawberries, used quite a few different kinds of fruits in there, and turned out really well. Just add something extra nice. I'm gonna go ahead and do an orange. Toss an orange in there. Now I'm juicing the orange here, but with the other fruits, for example, if you want to use watermelon or if you want to use any of the other fruits, you just want to chop them up into chunks. You don't need to, you know, juice or puree or anything like that. The reason being, when you put the fruit chunks in here, fruit has a lot of sugar in it, and sugar is an important part of the fermentation process in terms of interacting with the yeast. And if you want to make an alcoholic drink out of this, you're going to let it ferment longer. You can use more yeast, more sugar, blah, 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 blah. So you want the fruit in chunks so that the yeast can basically eat the sugar and produce fermentation and alcohol. Okay, so that is all I'm going to do for the lemon and orange. I'm going to take my yeast here. Now again, there's an exact measurement for how much yeast you can put in there. I recommend, if you want exact directions, Google it and look up the exact directions. I'm not using it. I'm just, like I say, kind of winging it here. So I'm just going to put a skosh of yeast in there. I have some Alabama Gulf Coast pure honey. Apparently the finest Publix has to offer. I'm just going to get in here and put a couple of good sized bits of honey in here. And you can use honey and the pure cane sugar. Like I said, the yeast is what's going to be interacting with the sugars. So just be aware, the more yeast and the more sugar you put in together, the more kind of a dynamite drink you're going to get, in a manner of speaking. The last batch of this that I made came out very, very carbonated and had a real strong bite to it, largely because I put a lot of yeast and there's a lot of fruit. It means a lot of sugars, a lot of fermentation. It was pretty strong, and I think it actually kept fermenting. Okay, so I've got all that in there. I'm going to let the natural sugars and then the honey, I'm just going to go with that for now. I'm not actually going to add any cane sugar, but that's something that you can add if you would like. Then you're going to want to have on hand pure distilled water. You don't want to use the water out of your sink because it's got a ton of crazy stuff in there, and if there's any sorts of mold or anything in your tap water, that could cause contamination. of your drink, basically. And you don't want that. So distilled water is the way to go. So we're going to go ahead, pour some water in here. Now, when you're fermenting drinks, that it's an active process. It's like a biological process, okay? Which means that this is kind of a living drink in a sense, all right? Especially during the fermentation process. The reason I mention it is when you're filling this up with water, you don't want to fill it up all the way to the top. You want to leave some space, because as the fermentation process occurs, it's going to create some gases and things, and with a sealed container, which you pretty much want to have this sealed, it can cause a buildup of gas, and you can actually have things explode, which is pretty rad, but I don't think you want to clean that up. So just FYI, leave a little space. Alright, so I've got that filled up about that high, as you can see, and I'm going to go ahead and close this down. Actually, you're going to want to take a spoon. Now technically you're not really going to want to use wood, because wood is a porous material. So plastic, metal, that's good. Just go ahead and give it a good stir. Stir everything up. Let everything get all mixed up in there. Okay. Make sure you get all the bits off of the spoon. Close it up. And there you go. You're going to want to let it sit in here. And probably you're going to want to burp it. Everyday burping, it's just where you kind of open the lid a little bit, vent the gases in case there's any buildup, so you don't get any craziness. Fermentation time varies, okay? It varies based on the climate that you live in, exposure to light. There's a lot of factors that go into fermentation, all right? So it also depends on how strong you want your drink. The longer you let it ferment, the more alcohol is going to build up. A short fermentation, maybe 3-4 days, you're not really going to have any sort of alcohol content in here, and if you do, it's very minute, on par with other drinks of this nature or whatever. If you let it ferment longer, it's going to be stronger, probably have a higher alcohol content, okay? You will notice the fermentation process because little bubbles will start going up, okay? Side note, watch the surface of this. If you're seeing any black mold or anything like that, any sort of funky colors like black or blue, you want to skim that off the top and throw that out as soon as you see it, okay? So check every day. That's bad, all right? Now fermentation is, like I say, a natural process, so you're going to see white building up on the top probably, stuff like that. That's all right. You're going to be okay with that. Anything black, blue, gnarly looking, scrape it off the top and chuck it out. Check real good for that, and your drink should still be good, okay? You don't need to throw out the whole batch because of something like that. I'll probably let this sit for about 3 or 4 days at least, and then maybe sip it, see how it tastes. Once it's to your liking, go ahead and throw it in the fridge and let it cool for at least a couple of hours before you drink it. That's going to stop or slow the fermentation process, and then you can bottle it up into individual bottles from there if you desire. So that's pretty much it. I hope you found this informative, and there's a million other videos on this topic, so thank you for watching mine. Until I think of something else to throw on the internet that you might be interested in, have a good one.